In this video, we'll be talking about the class Amphibians. I'll be taking a representative member of this class, which is the Bufo species. And in the previous video, we have talked about the primitive vertebrates, where we also mentioned the evolution of paired appendages, as well as the evolution of paired fins, and we also mentioned the primitive vertebrates, which include the chondrocytes, that is the cartilaginous fish, and the osteocytes, and that's the bony fish. And we mentioned some primitive characteristic of this group, like respiration with fins, they are restricted to water, and all like that. So in this video, we'll be talking about the amphibians, which is still more advanced than the corresponding osteocytes and the chondrocytes. But before we talk about that, something came to my mind. We have to talk about the tetrapod first, because amphibians are also part of tetrapods. So what are tetrapods? They are gotten from two names, that is tetra, meaning four, and podos, meaning foot, which means the animal with what? With four limbs. And they are believed to have evolved during the Devonian period. They evolved during the Devonian period, that is about 375 million years ago. And they believe that it is when a sarcopterygian developed a robust fins with bone segments, and it is this robust fin with bone segment that became the limb, because it was actually observed in a particular fossil known as Tiktaalik fossil. And this Tiktaalik fossils is a bridge between the primitive sarcopterygian and the amphibians. So there are a lot of research that has been going on to shed more light on fin to limb transition. But for now, you have to understand that the tetrapods have four basic classes, and that is the amphibians, the reptiles, the aves, and the mammals. We have them like that. All of them are tetrapods. And this four classes was estimated to have about 38,600 species worldwide. So for today, we'll be talking about the amphibians. The amphibians gotten from two words, amphi, and bions. Amphi means boats, and bions means life. They are believed to live on both land and water, and that is where they got their name from. So they are the first group of animals to invade the land. They exhibit metamorphosis during their life cycle. They live on both land and water. They have webbed digits, and they are poikilothermic animal or cold-blooded animals, which means their temperature depends on the temperature of the environment. We have basically three classes. We have the Gymnophiona, we have the Anora, and we have the Urodela. The Anora are tailless amphibians, while the Urodela are tailed amphibians. So Anora means no, Anora means tail. So Urodela means tail-bearing amphibians. So, and we have the Gymnophiona. Now, this group of animals have been believed to originate from lobed finfish, and they are the first animals to have evolved four limbs. Where we have in their limbs, we have the forelimbs, that is the one at the front, and we have the hind limb, that is the one at the back. The forelimbs has 4 digits, while the hind limbs have 5 digits. We just have to note that. Now, another thing is that this group of animals, this class is it is dominated by the anorans, which is basically the frog and the toad. And the frog and the toad has about 6,750 species of anoran out of 7,650 species, while the Urodela and the Gymnophiona takes the remaining part, where Urodela has about 710 species and Gymnophiona has about 250 species. These are just estimations, right? Amphibians reproduction is diverse, and many of them use fertilizer and external fertilization in ponds, while others use internal fertilization or elaborate parental care, where we have egg brooding in skin and pouches that is seen in some amphibians. Adult amphibians respire with lungs, while the tadpole respire with gills. Remember I told you that they live on both land, so in land they respire with lung, and water they respire with what? With gills. Their skin is permeable. The skin is permeable, hence they can also use their skin in respirating. They can use their skin for respiration as well. Now, the skin gland is rough because they have something we call the integumental gland. So it is the integumental gland that keep the skin gland to be rough, and they have a short body while they make a creak sound. The temperature depends on the temperature of the environment, hence we can say they are what? They are poikilothermic animal or cold-blooded animals. And this image is showing the evolution of this group of animals, or the evolution of the early tetrapods. So these are early amphibians that you are seeing in this image here. Now, what are the adaptation of amphibians to live on land? Since we say they move from water and live on land, what are the adaptation? I'm going to mention few of the adaptation of amphibians to live on land. And the first one, which is one of the most important, is the presence of large shoulder and hip bone. They have large shoulder and they have hip bones, and this helps them in carrying weights. Another thing is they have interlocked vertebrates, and these interlocked vertebrates prevent their backbone from twisting or from sagging when they are hopping. So it helps them in what? In their movements, right? Another thing is they have something we call the middle ear. The middle ear helps them in hearing outside of the water. It helps them in hearing outside of the water. And there is something we call the tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane. And this tympanic membrane is found to attach to a bone in the stapes, which is at the middle ear. So it helps sound wave to travel from outside the environment to inside the environment. This is what the staples allows them to do. And this helps them in what? This helps them in hearing outside of the water. Now, depending on the species of amphibians, they can breathe through their skin. Hence, we can say their skin is what? Is permeable. Permeable to oxygen. So depending on the species, not all species, and they have a lungs. You get me now? They have a lungs and they also respire with gills. So their lungs are balloon-like. The lungs look like balloon, which the adults use for respiration, while the young one use gills for respiration. Unlike fishes, amphibians has three-chambered hearts. You know, fishes has two-chambered hearts. Amphibians has three-chambered hearts. So instead of single circulation, they have incomplete double circulation for amphibians because of the three-chambered hearts. And these three-chambered hearts include two auricles and one ventricle. You have to know that. Two auricle and one ventricle. So the blood pumps through the artery, then it carries the oxygenated blood from the heart to the skin or the lungs, another part of the body, for the oxygen to circulate throughout the body. Now, amphibians have been seen to evolve all the possible ways to stay on land. Amphibians, they have been seen to evolve all the possible ways of living on land and to live outside of the water, but they have not found a solution to their egg from drying out if they are laid outside of the water. Hence, they have to go back to the water to mate. For mating and reproduction, they have to go back to the water. Remember I told you that their fertilization is external. So the male shed out the sperm and the female shed out the egg. The fertilized egg is going to stay inside water and it is going to hatch into a third pole. But one of the problems that they have in land colonization is that they have to move back to water to reproduce. So let us talk about the problems of colonization in amphibians. Like I said, amphibians are the first animals to venture on land. So the So this group of animals cannot stay far from water. They cannot stray far from water because their reproduction is intimately tied to aqueous environment. Hence, they have something we call biphasic life cycle. Biphasic life cycle, where the young one stays in water and the adult moves to land. And this land, they still must not move far away from water. Are you getting me now? So one thing about it is there's something they undergo something we call metamorphosis. Like I said, they have metamorphosis. They have biphasic life cycle. And in this biphasic life cycle, we have to understand that they live on land, they live in water, and inside the water they respire with what? With gills. And they also live on land. And on land they respire with what? They respire with lungs. So the gills will metamorphosize into what? Into lungs. That is one of the metamorphoses that they have. So they maintain the biphasic life cycle because they cannot keep their egg to be dry of water. Now, the skin of amphibian is thick. Their skin is thick and it must be wet. It must be wet, but their skin evaporates easily. So they prevent the risk of drying out. So once they move away from water, they are going like this thing is going to dry out. So they have to stay somewhere that is very, very close to the water. Are you getting me? They have to stay somewhere that is very, very close to water to prevent them from what? From drying out as well. For example, frogs and salamander. Frog and salamander, they are going to dry out. They are going to dry out and they will die if they are exposed to air. So frog and salamander, they live in what? They live in aquatic environment or semi-aquatic environment. So they don't move away from aqueous environments. Because of what? Because their body evaporates water easily and their body is thick and they have to make their body to be wet. So they do not stray afar from the aqueous environment. Now, what is now the difference between toad and frog? I have mentioned toad now and I've mentioned frog. Remember I told that the both of them are what? Are anorans. The both of them are anorans because they do not have tail. Now for toad, their skin is dry. The skin is, let me zoom it in. For toad, the skin is dry, bumpy and warty. While for frog, the skin is smooth, moist and slippery. Toad prefer a drier environment closer to land. So they are able to move on land. Toad are able to move on land, but they come back to water to come and reproduce. But frogs, they love wet or damp habitats near water. For toad, they have shorter hind legs, while for frog, they have long and powerful hind legs. So the hind leg of toad is shorter than the hind leg of frog. Toad lays egg in long chains, while frog lays egg in cluster or masses. Toad have something we call parotid gland behind the eyes, and what do they use it for? Producing toxic substance. While frog does not have anything called parotid gland, hence they do not secrete any toxin in their skin. Toad tends to walk rather than jump, while frog are known for their strong acrobatic jump. The hind leg of toad, the hind leg or the hind limbs of toad are partly webbed, while the hind leg of frog they are fully webbed. So these are the basic difference between toad and frog, right? So this is just what we mean by the basic difference of them. Now let us move to the environmental sensitivity and modern threat to amphibians. So in this section, we'll talk about environmental sensitivity, witty, and modern threats. You see, amphibian permeable skin and complex life cycle make them sensitive indicator of the ecosystem. And currently, roughly 40% of amphibians are threatened with extinction because there are recent deforestation, wetland drainage developments, which affect 93% of the threatened species. And there are some emerging diseases, just like chytridiomyces, which is caused by a bacterium, which is caused by a fungi. And this has rapidly declined the population of many frogs and salamanders. They also face something we call cascade pressures, and there is habitat loss and fragmentation. All these things are threatening the survival of amphibians. Disease, climate change, pollutions, other stressors such as invasive predators, overharvesting, which contributes to the decline, though they are often secondary to above factors, which is disease, climate change, pollution, and contaminants. So these are environmental sensitivity and the modern threats to amphibians. So the modern decline of amphibians reflects how their ancient amphibious physiology interacts with rapid environmental change. For example, without abundant water and canopy cover, frogs cannot avoid desiccation or complete their life cycle. That is why frog must stay in what? In wet area. Are you getting me now? So, like I mentioned, let me just mention what I just said now. One of the things that strengthen the survival of um, amphibians includes disease, climate change, pollution and contaminants, invasive predators, and overharvesting. So these are the things that is actually disturbing the survival of this group of animals. So let us quickly go into the biology of Bufo, that is the true toad. And in this we have the classification of this group of animals: kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, subphylum Vertebrata, class Amphibian, order Anura, family Buffonidae, genus Bufo, and species Bufo. So they are Bufo. And they are called what? They are called true toad. They are called true toad. So Bufo is a group of true toad in family Buffonidae. And they have short body and short limbs. They have rough and tough skin, which helps them to secrete a toxin. Remember, I told you that they secrete a toxin using a parotid gland, and this toxin is used for defense against predator. During the day, they are found hiding behind houses, bricks, dark place, and they come out only at night to feed on insects, earthworms, even snails, and they are referred to as nocturnal animals. Now, about their poison gland, they have three glands. They have what? They have three glands which secrete oily bufotoxin, alkaloid neurotoxic chemicals that they use as poison to their predators. I get me now. So Bufo, they lack teeth on the upper jaw. So they catch their prey by shooting out their sticky tongue or by lunging. Then they swallow their prey as a whole. Remember their prey, that is include the earthworm, insects, and even snails, right? So let us talk about the internal anatomy of the Bufo. Bufo shares the same basic plans as amphibian. That is, they have three chambered hearts, which consists of two atria and one ventricle. Two atria and one ventricle. They have a pair of lungs. A pair of lungs for breathing. Like other animals, they have urinary bladder, and their excretory product is nitrogenous waste, usually urea. And the reason why they excrete urea is to conserve water. So they cannot excrete urine because they need to conserve water. So the male toad have focal sac in their throats, and what they use the focal sac is for calling a mating partner during their mating. Fertilization is external in this group of animal, and the reproduction or the fertilization occurs inside water. Breeding time is usually annual, and it is timed by temperature and rainfall. So many Bufo species migrate seasonally to the communal breeding pond or slow stream for mating. Look at the way they are mating here. What is going to happen is that the male is going to clasp the female under the forearms. Can you see? It is going to clasp the female under the forearms, during which it fertilizes the egg as she lays them. So Bufo are highly fecund. Each female can lay one up to thousands of eggs, and egg is deposited in a long gelatinous string rather than compact clumps that is found in frogs. Remember I told that they lay their egg in form of a chain. So once they lay their egg, it is going to, this is for a frog. You will see that for a frog, it is in cluster, but for a toad, it will be in what? In form of a chain. But they still undergo what we know as what? What we know as biphasic life cycle. So let us just use this one as an example. So after the egg has been laid, the tadpole is going to hatch. And once the tadpole hatch, it will start developing inside the water. So it will be undergoing metamorphosis. And one of the metamorphoses it's going to undergo is that the gills is going to turn into lungs, the back leg is going to start developing, then we are going to have a fully developed frog that is lacking a tail. So the tail will not be there. The reason why they have this tail during tadpole is for swimming, but once they grow, they don't need the tail anymore. So the tail is going to become vestigial. Now, Bufo adults have no parental care because toads, they don't have parental care. So you understand. So this is how their development occurs. But remember that their development includes metamorphosis. In ecosystem, Bufo occupy an important predator and prey niche, and because they consume vast number of invertebrates, which include beetle, slugs, worms, spiders, ants, and etc. And they used to come out at night to feed. I think I've mentioned that before. And they can feed on hundreds of insects. So they are referred to as friend of gardens and farmers, and they provide an important ecosystem service. As prey, they are eaten by snakes, by birds, and even by mammals, especially those that are resistant to bufotoxin, such as garter snakes and herons. Garter snake is a reptile. It is resistant to bufotoxin, and heron is a bird that is resistant to bufotoxin as well. Bufotoxin is the toxin that is produced by the parotid gland, which is produced by the toad, right? So this is just the basic aspect of the class amphibians, which we talk about the biology of the Bufo species. So thank you so much for watching, and in the next video we'll be talking about the class reptilia. Thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.